Sonic Adventure, the Sonic game that defined an era, with it being Sonic's first true 3D outing and having some of my personal favorite character models for the characters here, in the Dreamcast version. Everyone here just looks so right. Their proportions are still a little cartoony in a way, their heads just a little bit wide, their shoes looking like bricks. It truly was the next evolution of Sonic, to bring him into a new format of game, the Adventure series. A series defined by, well, we'll get to it. This game truly has a lot going for it, even with the modern ports putting its quality into question. The original, I believe, would have truly stood the test of time if it was accurately ported instead of the half-broken, messy director's cut. It was the first Sonic game with multiple stories. Sure, in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you could play as all of the main trio, but it mostly boiled down to how you wanted to get through the same set of stages. This had entirely new routes for progression based on what character you played, and their stories would even overlap here and there. There were open zones. Sure, they're not the full-on open worlds we see in modern gaming like Breath of the Wild or even Sonic Frontiers, but these connected hub worlds are honestly really charming. It's incredible how they made such amazing locales just for the ways between levels. Plus, it introduced new characters that are still important to the Sonic canon nowadays. Chaos and Tikal are fan favorites, with Chaos themselves being insanely important to the lore of Sonic Frontiers. Big is, well, maybe the Sonic community's favorite gag character, and E102 Gamma, who, without him and his honestly heartwarming story, we don't get E123 Omega. And then it was immediately followed up by Sonic Adventure 2. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, releasing a sequel game just a bit over 900 days is actually insanely impressive. Sure, it's still a few years, but with how long modern game development takes, you'd expect it to get teased, and then 3 years later we still don't know anything. Sorry, I lost my cool. This is a Sonic video. Anyways, SA2 was a much bigger game in retrospect. The introduction of characters that have been staples since, like Shadow, Rouge, and the goddamn President stand for the national anthem. Blue streak speeds by. A story told in 3 parts, Hero, Dark, and Final. Again, you can see the overlapping in their stories, with Tails and Eggman meeting up to fight at Prison Island, Sonic and Shadow fighting in the jungle, and Knuckles and Rouge bickering like an old married couple who you wish would just can it on the plane so you can get home in peace. Yet again, we have an ambitious 3D Sonic game where you control multiple different characters throughout an interconnected stories that have collectible upgrades to find throughout the game, and that's it. Let's take a look back at Sonic Adventure 1 for a moment. I know I mentioned it just earlier, but what sticks out about this game? What? No, I meant design-wise. What the fuck are you thinking I meant? Who put that in? When I think of Adventure 1, I can't help but think about the open zones, something completely absent in 2. I mean, seriously, that's a huge difference between the two games. I guess they felt as if having the story flow along naturally instead of stopping you to collect an old man was better for the game, but it leaves out a huge feeling of exploration. I mean, it's not just that either. Let's take a look at their stories individually. In SA1, Eggman summons Chaos. Chaos fucks things up, we learn about the history of the Chaos Emeralds and save the day, boom, credits. Then, in Sonic Adventure 2, we find out about Shadow, and how he's, important to Gun's history? Did Gun even exist before SA2? What do you mean they didn't? Well, still, we learn about Gun and Shadow's history and get introduced to a brand new rival to Sonic. Thank God it's been ages since the last one, and Knuckles doesn't really act like much of a rival anymore. We have a whole back and forth trying to get back the Chaos Emeralds to stop Eggman from taking over the world, only to learn that old Flappy over here decided that the Ark was made to destroy the world. And with Shadow realizing it was Maria's wish to protect the planet, Sonic and Shadow go super, save the day, and avenge Maria. Oh, also Shadow almost dies or something, I don't know. Now, please tell me, is there a single element shared between these stories that would make this truly an adventure sequel story-wise? You've traded off learning about something we've had in the series for decades to learning about entirely new things, which is awesome, but Christ, I don't think Chaos, the water guy, not the element, is even mentioned in Sonic Adventure 2. And don't you dare tell me that the battle mode counts! And if you start to think a little more, you realize even the way you select the multiple playable characters is completely different from SA1 to 2. In 1, all 6 are individually selectable and have their own unique gameplay. In SA2, there are still 6 playable characters, but you basically select them 3 at a time. And for the sake of consistency, each team has a parallel in playstyles on the other side. So the stories don't line up, the gameplay barely lines up, and the only concrete thing holding this series together is the goddamn Chow Garden! I'm so sorry, Chow Garden. I didn't mean to yell at you like that. You're actually doing a great job, and we're all so proud of you. But my point still stands. I get that it's important to give a sequel its own identity, but it's also important to have a sequel iterate on what the previous was, to double down and set the precedent for what makes the series stick together. And Sonic Adventure 2 doesn't really do that. The lineup of characters they introduce is completely different. While I like them all individually, there clearly wasn't some divine reason that Big and Rouge parallel or anything. They were both just introduced, which is fine. I like them, but that just means introducing characters isn't a unique thing to the Adventure series. Again, this is to say nothing about the game's quality, but it's objectively muddied what it means to be a Sonic Adventure game. So much so that people are still asking for a game we've hypothetically already gotten multiple times already. Sonic Adventure 3 is one of the most requested games of all time. In my eyes, it's up there with Kingdom Hearts 3 and Half-Life 3. And while those have both been released now, kinda, I don't know if Alex really counts, I'm not a Half-Life fan, Sonic Adventure 3 is nowhere to be seen. Right? Well, clearly not. The community seems to all agree on the fact that the ever-awaited, often theorized, and desperately yearned for Sonic Adventure 3 was released as— oh, you've got to be fucking kidding. I haven't played this game. Sorry, I spend my time playing 1,000-hour RPGs, not buggy messes, but suffice to say, 06 does resemble what a lot of people would want out of an Adventure 3. You've got multiple stories, this time going from 2 to 3, and multiple characters throughout those stories you play as. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, Rouge, Omega, Silver, and Blaze. Wait, what the fuck? Amy's playable too? I genuinely didn't know that when I was writing the script. Like, I'm just noticing that in editing. What the— There's the open zone hub worlds that act as your method between individual levels. On paper, this is Adventure 3. So what's the issue? Eternal damnation mostly, but also the fact this game is still missing elements from SA1 and 2. First of all, there's no Chow Garden. I know it's a joke, but that is genuinely one of the few through lines we have for the first two Adventure games. Not having it here snaps that line off and just leaves us with multiple stories being our through line, which at this point isn't an Adventure exclusive. Both Rush and Mania to a lesser extent have had that. It introduces a new rival to Sonic, which is a thing SA2 did, so maybe that can count? It has them all going super at the end too, so it's clearly calling back to how SA2 introduced Shadow. And instead of looking at the past for its storytelling, it's looking at the future. Mostly, I don't know, it's time traveling all over the place, but it's still not narratively congruent with the previous Adventure games. You could also argue breaking the mold and adding 9 playable characters instead of 6 disqualifies this as being Adventure 3, but I think the main thing holding this game back from truly being recognized as Sonic Adventure 3 is just its reputation. Nobody is happy with this as our Sonic Adventure 3. Sure, it mixes elements of the adventure games we love to sort of act as a glue sticking them together gameplay-wise, but we need a good game to be Sonic Adventure 3, or at least a passable one. I mean, as long as it's on par with SA1 DX, we're probably fine, and that's a pretty low bar, right? Sonic Heroes. This is also one I often see associated with being the real Sonic Adventure 3, and in theory it's got a lot going for it in that record. It's structured a lot more similarly to SA2 than SA1. While we're missing out on character upgrades, we've got our 4 different teams of 3 in Sonic Heroes, confirming that Big is roughly as strong as Knuckles, Omega, and Vector. Now, while 4 selectable characters is less than 6, there were initially plans to be 2 more teams in this game. I know this is probably known nowadays, but I found out about it recently. Notably, Big was meant to be on a team with E102 Gamma and Chaos, and Mighty and Ray were set to come back on a team with, Metal Sonic. This also left Rouge to be on Team Rose, and then— shit, who knows what they would have done with Team Dark. Anyways, these 4 teams we do have include their own individual stories, which interlink with each other through these little playable fights. It's got a story about a character we haven't seen in a while taking up their role of the main villain in Metal Sonic, which can maybe make the adventure game staple having their story generally be about the past, I guess? It's also got that whole early 2000s aesthetic still kicking. I didn't bring it up earlier, but the adventure games are so of an era in such a charming way. And I think this game is more in line aesthetically to the previous adventure games than 06 ever could be. But there's still things holding this game back from being Adventure 3. It's got no item upgrades like I mentioned, the gameplay itself is wildly different from the adventure games, while also having each team play very similarly to each other, and it technically doesn't even introduce any new characters beyond Omega, who's already a remixed version of Gamma. While Cream was made for this game, she ended up being shown off in the advanced games beforehand. I like the subtle theming of having a third Sonic Adventure game being based around teams of 3, but it needs more than that to be truly considered an Adventure 3, right? It has some narrative similarities to the previous adventure games, but it throws out just too much for it to be a satisfying take on being the third adventure game. Plus, if we do count it as Adventure 3, then we've been begging for an already released game for nearly 21 years. So, let's look elsewhere. Sonic Unleashed. It's got open zones, collectibles, mandatory upgrades, and multiple gameplay styles? It's a far cry from the 6 individual characters we had from Sonic Adventure 1, but this could be our Adventure 3, right? Again, probably not, at least in my eyes. Its story is about the past, sure, but every time I mention that, I realize just how vague that sounds. Any story is about the past, dipshit. It's called The Consequences of Your Actions. It introduces new human characters and new locations more than anything, really giving us the most world building a Sonic game ever tried to give, which I respect. It's just a shame the only times we really see or hear about these places now are in the comics, which can't show humans outside of Eggman for some reason. Sorry, anyways, back on track. It is also technically called Sonic World Adventure over in Japan, and had that same prototype name here in the US, so that's another point in its favor. This is essentially an adventure game if you swapped out the multiple characters for multiple Sonics. We've got daytime, nighttime, and plane rides. I'm sure this was done because at the time many reviewers were criticizing Sonic's overpopulated cast, but quite frankly, I love all these brightly colored goobers too much to ever consider that a valid criticism. I do think the only thing holding this game back for what it's worth is the fact that it's only Sonic. If you had multiple storylines, maybe swap out the Werehog for Knuckles, this would totally be it in my eyes. But if none of these fit the bill for Sonic Adventure 3, hell, what could at this point? I mean, is it Sonic Forces? It introduces a new villain and has multiple characters, but it throws out pretty much every other unique thing about the Adventure series. Generations is the same, just with one less character. Does Colors count? You can play as the Mii's in its Gameland. What about the Rush games? They're not 3D, mostly, but they do introduce a new rival for Sonic and have 2 separate stories that do intertwine. Does Shadow the Hedgehog count? I conveniently forgot about it until this very moment, but it was released around the same time as Heroes, and its story has a lot of callbacks to Sonic Adventure 2. Does this make it a Sonic Adventure 2 sequel, but not a Sonic Adventure 3? What would make a Sonic Adventure 3 at this point? Does it need open zones, collectibles, multiple characters, a Chow Garden, upgrades? Does it even need to be a video game at this point? Okay, we can calm down now. I'm not actually that heated about the lack of cohesion between the adventure games. To be honest, it's incredible a sub-series can be this loved and requested to come back while having such disconnected entries. I just thought this would be a good way to get the fact off my chest that Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are such different games and stories when you truly break it down. To the point where Sega kinda has nowhere to go for a true Sonic Adventure 3. The original Sonic Adventure was Sega's attempt to stay in the console industry, with Sonic Adventure 2 being, at that point, their last push to stay in the games industry. There was a realistic chance it was their last time with the blue blur, and so part of why it's even named Sonic Adventure 2 was for sales. But all of the talk about the Unleashed recompile just made me think back to this beloved little mini-series and pick it apart like I do everything that I love. At the end of the day, I think the real Sonic Adventure 3 was the friends we made along the way. Wait, so if it doesn't have to be a game, does that mean the IDW comics are the real Sonic Adventure 3? Thank you to the channel members, Lumi Luminosity, Ioko Soko, and Linksicle. You guys are the best. Crystal blisters, it's all over now. Psycho can't use a